Welcome everyone to this panel discussion on learning from others. I'm really pleased you've joined us here today and I hope you're enjoying the festival so far. I'm Beth Thompson, Head of UK and EU Policy at Wellcome, where I lead our research culture work. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a white woman with long curly dark hair and green eyes. I'm wearing glasses and I'm wearing a blue top. I imagine you're here because you care about creating a better research culture. And at Wellcome, we think creating a more creative, inclusive and honest culture for research will make it a better job to do for people in the community, but also will improve research itself. Our Reimagine research work has focused on creating a shared understanding of what a great culture would look like and understanding the actions that can take us there. And that's what we're here to talk about today. We've got a fantastic panel from within research and from beyond. I'm really looking forward to introducing you to them. But before I do, I've got some housekeeping. So first, on accessibility features, you can access the closed captions via the settings function within BlueJeans. That's in the lower right corner of your screen. There's also live captions that are available. They'll be shared through a link in the chat for you to get to them. So please do make use of those if you need to take a look at the chat. We don't have many slides today, but when there are slides up, you'll be able to adjust the size of the slides, the speaker, and Michelle, our BSL interpreter's videos. Just hover your cursor over the screen and you can adjust the sizes from there. Very importantly, how do you take part? Although this is a panel discussion and we can't see you all, we do want you to join in as much as you can. So we'll be taking your questions, which I will put to the panel. Please submit them through the Q&A function that you can see in your BlueJeans in the app. Stick them in there. Let me know if there's a particular panelist you'd like me to direct your question to. And do share your thoughts on social media using our hashtag #ReimagineResearch. Finally, I'd say please do give us your full attention. I know it's really tempting online to be checking your email and trying to multitask and do other things, but we'd ask that you give us your full attention for this hour. Please ignore those other windows, and in return, we're going to try and make this as engaging as possible for you. So, before we get going, we're going to take a moment to settle in with a guided meditation from one of our panelists' organisations, Heart and Soul. You'll hear a bit more about Heart and Soul later, but let's kick off with this guided meditation. Cheryl's a Heart and Soul artist. Heart and Soul use her music at the start of their meeting so that people can just let go, relax, and arrive in an open space for the meeting. Michaela, who does the voiceovers, is one of the co-researchers for Heart and Soul at the Hub. So with no further ado, we'll go to the video.
Now, if you would all like to close your eyes and concentrate on Cheryl's voice. Now, just take a few deep breaths. And when you listen to the voice of Cheryl, just empty your mind, and if there are any thoughts which are disturbing, just let them go. Take deep breaths. just relax. Release any tensions in your body. Just let your body go with the flow. Anything which gives you a lovely feeling, just listen to that feel. Just listen to the feel of the music. And just relax. Now, whenever you're ready, just open your eyes and just say, how did that all feel?
Oh, how did it feel? I know for lots of you that will be an unusual way to open a meeting. Just take a moment to share how it felt for you in the chat. I'm going to take a moment to be quiet while you tell us what that was like for you. Nice, soothing. Oh, thanks. Loads of comments coming here. Nearly fell asleep in a good way. Fantastic. Well, what a great way to start our meeting. I'm now going to come to each of our speakers. We've got one question to get them going, a different question for each of them. And I'm going to come to Scilla first. I'm going to remind each of our speakers, we'd love it if you can, to briefly introduce yourself, tell us your pronouns, and briefly describe yourself for attendees who can't see the panel. So, to kick off, Scilla, can I come to you?
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Scilla Snowball. My pronouns are she, her, governor at Wellcome. I'm a white woman with blonde hair. I'm wearing glasses and a yellow top, and it's great to be here.
Thank you, Scilla. So, the opening question we have for you is, what's the dividend that we get from creating more diverse businesses with an inclusive culture?
Well, that's a massive question, Beth, and the diversity dividend is growth in all senses. My background is in business, and McKinsey have done deep analysis into the diversity dividend, which shows in business that diversity provides greater profit uplift in businesses with diverse leadership over those with no diversity in their senior leadership. But the dividend goes way beyond profit. It's all about better culture in organisations, better innovation, better engagement with staff and stakeholders, and better retention of the staff base And those issues are obviously vital to performance in any organisation. So really, I think diversity and inclusion gives you a better shot at attracting and retaining good people, engaging a diverse client and partner base, and representing the communities you serve. So diversity and inclusion literally pays back. There's a strong business case, there's obviously a moral imperative and a performance advantage, which is really well worth all the effort we're putting into it. But the dividend's hard won. It's not easy. It's not a quick fix or a switch that can be flicked. It's painstaking. It's a drains up, heavy lifting process, which can often take years to get right. So there's a great deal of work to be done to make workplace culture more inclusive, more diverse and safe. But the dividend makes that all worthwhile for everybody.
Thank you, Scilla. There's lots there that I want to come back and explore across all our speakers. Next, I'm going to go over to Robin. Robin, if you can introduce yourself, that would be great. And the question we have for you is, can we all be researchers?
Hello, my name is Robin Stewart. My preferred pronouns are she and her. I'm a white woman in my 30s. I've got a purple sparkly hat, glasses, yellow shirt with little flowers on it, and a jacket, like a suit jacket, and I've got a busy background behind me. And the short answer is yes, we can all be researchers. And I want to share with you how and why we do that. So Heart and Soul is an arts organisation based in South East London who believe in the power and talents of people with learning disabilities and autistic people. They've been going for over 30 years. And in 2018, we had the opportunity to work with Wellcome. We were winners of the Wellcome Hub Award, which is a 2-year residency on the 5th floor at the Wellcome Collection. And the idea of the Wellcome Hub Award is to bring together different collaborators like academics, medical professionals, artists, and people within the community to do research together. We started off with a very corporate looking office space, and the first thing we did was an access audit. So we asked the people that were going to be using the space what needed to change for it to be more accessible, and we also consulted groups from outside of Heart and Soul, and then we put in those places that people suggested. So for example, we've got an art table and a chill out room with a sleep pod, a sofa with other seating options, and plenty of space to do creative activities, including a blackboard wall that you could draw on. The thing I want to talk about, we did lots of different things within the project, but the thing today I want to talk about is the co-researchers. So the co-researchers was a group of people with and without learning disabilities and autistic and non-autistic people working together to ask research questions. And the reason we wanted to do that was because mostly people with learning disabilities and autistic people are seen as research subjects. People just research us as if, we were a virus or, we were something that isn't human quite often. And we wanted to really democratize research by flipping the microscope and being researchers ourselves. So people with learning disabilities and autistic people researching the general population and asking questions. Sorry. And what kind of informed our work, if you like, is that we wanted to do true co-production. So often people with learning disabilities and autistic people are just tokens. We just our involvement is tokenistic. People don't make adaptations for us. They use overcomplicated language, or they only provide things in one format. And it means that the engagement and the level of involvement is very limited. So this is the ladder of co-production. I drew this, but it's not my idea. The ladder of co-production is a way of kind of visualizing the construct of the different levels of co-production. So we start with coercion, sort of influencing. Oh, if you buy me a chocolate bar, I'll be your friend. Yeah, you don't really mean that. What you mean is you want a free chocolate bar. Educating, it might be someone telling you, well, this is how it's got to be. Informing might be a bit more of a discussion. Consultation might be being asked, but are you really being asked? Have people made those decisions already? And also, do you really have all the options open to you? Engagement might be helping to shape something, but not being directly involved with the decisions. Co-design is designing something together, and co-production is everybody working together from start to finish. And that's very much what we did. So we started by creating a survey app. The first survey we did was about productivity, and we used Qualtrics, which is a very common search platform. I can hear a little bit of echo, so maybe someone needs to mute themselves. And Qualtrics is not accessible, so we wanted to create a survey platform that was accessible, that would enable people to be able to, co-produce surveys, to be able to ask questions in different formats. So like, for example, here's a question, it's in video format, but you can also have it as a transcript, and then you can answer in type or with a photo, and a photo could be a picture you've drawn or a photo of yourself. Audio could be an audio recording of your voice or something else, and a video, again, it could be a GIF, or it could be like a video that you make of yourself. We did 2 surveys and we had over 3,000 responses. And to us, it was really important that we could ask a diverse group of people, and that we didn't just, ask the typical demographic who answer surveys. As I said before about co-production, that everybody was going to be part of everything from the beginning to the end. So with designing the survey, designing the space, with being, coming to the meetings and working together to develop the themes and the questions. And we did that through creativity, and then analysing the responses. And we used machine learning because we got 3,000 responses in various formats. So we used machine learning to make it possible for us to be able to work in an equal way. And then obviously, because of COVID, we all had to move online, which presented its own problems, because lots of people with learning disabilities and autistic people don't have access to technology, or don't have suitable learning materials to help them to be able to use it. Technology isn't intuitive to everybody. The outputs from our work have been that we presented at CHI, the Computer Human Interaction Conference, last year. It was online, but it would have been in Hawaii. We also were published in the Design for Health conference, which would have been in Amsterdam, but obviously that also was online. We've submitted to the Journal of Learning Disabilities, and we had a Guardian article, and we also have a website. You can visit our website, including if you want to just listen to Cheryl's music without the voiceover, you can do that. The website address is www.heartandsoulatthehub.com, and our Twitter and Instagram is @heartandsouli. Thank you very much for listening to me and inviting me, and I hope that I said all of the things that I was supposed to say.
Robin, thanks so much. I love your ladder from all the way up to co-production. I think that's a fantastic way of visualizing how we can be really inclusive in how we do our research. And I find it really fascinating that, in a sense, Heart and Soul is doing something that feels quite radical, but is something that should be much more the norm. Next, I'm going to come over to John Elliott. John, tell us who you are, and the question that we'd like to hear from you about, John, is Why does AstraZeneca invest in leadership?
Thanks, Beth, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world watching this. So I'm John Elliott. I lead on science policy at AstraZeneca, and I have a background in science in government primarily. My preferred pronouns are he, him, and I'm a white male in my 30s with a shaved head to hide a receding hairline. And I'm wearing a mustard shirt and a jacket. So the question that Beth asked me to think about was, why do we invest in leadership? And I think Scylla's teed it up quite nicely, and I'll probably come on to that a little bit more about the kind of stark business benefits. But I think the first thing to say is that it does take investment. These kind of things don't happen just naturally, or if they do, they happen in small pockets. And if you're really committed to your workforce for reasons, in some cases for business outcomes, you do need to invest in this and see it as an investment. And so, you know, some of the things that we do is that we have right at the core of our corporate strategy 3 key priorities, and one of those is to make AstraZeneca a great place to work. And we know from our engagement exercises that one of the key determinants of making our business a great place to work is the leadership experience that many of the people in the organisation face or experience. I think the second thing I'd say as well is that you know, whilst I'm talking here about AZ, I think there's a lot across industry that we share in different sectors, and to some extent, actually, within my experience in government as well, which we might tease out a little bit later in the Q&A. The second point I'd make is that what I should finally say actually as well is that we have a series of structured programs and informal programs that build our leadership cadre, and it works. So, you know, the sort of our top 3 career levels within the business, 60% are promoted internally. So those are people who've built the skills and that we are now confident can lead teams. So the second thing I say is we are a science-led business, like many others across the sector, and that means that it is a highly competitive sector for our scientific workforce. People move around within the industry, some back into academia, some elsewhere. And actually, if a business like ours is not getting the leadership culture right, we will lose good talent. And if we lose good talent, that will have a negative impact on our bottom line. So, you know, there is a strong business case for investing in leadership amongst our scientific cadre. And then finally, I would say, and this is probably a bit more individual to us as a business, is that our scientific approach is very team focused. So we rely on our teams to deliver, and if those teams are not well led, then they won't. So, you know, we're not looking for academic excellence from a single bright spark. We're actually looking for a team effort, and a lot of that team effort will be global. So we will have teams that are based jointly in 2, 3, even 4 sites internationally, and their leadership style will have to be tailored for those audiences. So, you know, we're looking at a complex leadership environment, one that we invest in, because if we don't, we won't see results.
Thanks, John. That is a pretty compelling case. Quick reminder to put any questions that have come to mind as you've been listening to our speakers into the Q&A, and do direct them to someone in particular if you're interested in hearing from them. Finally, last but not least, I'm going to come to Soraya. Can you tell us, Soraya, after you introduce yourself, how has the RAF built a system that invests in leadership?
Hi Beth, thank you very much. I'm Soraya. My preferred pronouns are she and her. I am a mixed race woman, so half white, half Asian. I normally have long dark hair, but I'm in a uniform today. I'm in work, so my hair is tied back and I'm in a light blue shirt. Right, so how has the Royal Air Force built a system that invests in leadership? I really, really liked, what both John and Scilla say, and I think that ties very much into what the Royal Air Force has done. Leadership is an absolute key attribute of the officer cadre within the Royal Air Force. And irrespective of what role you have, whether you're a pilot or a logistician or an engineer, that's your professional responsibility, but we are all officers first. And so leadership is absolutely the thing that we invest in and that we value. And in fact, we select our people into the Royal Air Force based on their innate sort of leadership potential. And we really start developing it from the very first day that they join. If you join as an officer, you spend your first 6 months in training, learning how to be an officer and ultimately how to lead effectively. And then it doesn't stop there. You carry on with training interventions all the way through your career. Really, I've been in the service for 27 years and I am still undertaking training opportunities that develop my leadership style. I think how the Royal Air Force trains or develops leadership has changed a lot. I think maybe the old school way of thinking about it was that leadership was a natural ability, and I absolutely echo John's comment that it doesn't happen naturally, and I think we recognise that. Leadership is something that has to be developed. And I think in the Royal Air Force, our view of what effective leadership has changed very much as well. I think perhaps 10 years or so ago, we admired that sort of charismatic, directive, probably quite masculine style of leadership. And we tried to make all leaders look really quite similar in their leadership style. But as really what Scilla said resonated, this idea that effective leadership comes in all shapes and forms, and diversity in our leadership in the way we lead is just as important as other factors. And so we've tried to really cultivate a much more inclusive leadership style, one that encourages people to lead in their own distinct style, one that absolutely promotes sort of diversion and inclusion within our organisation, one that actively tries to value and empower our people. And actually, bizarrely, for a hierarchical organisation that has rank, we want to engender a culture in which people can challenge. And we've learnt this lesson the hard way. You look back at the sort of Iraq war, the Chilcot inquiry into that, and the fact that, some people had the right answer, but they weren't able to speak up because of the culture of the organisation. So again, the way in which we've invested in developing our leadership is really looking at how we can encourage a more effective leadership, absolutely, but inclusive leadership, and one in which everyone has a voice.
Thanks, Soraya. I think this sense of investing through someone's career is really interesting, partly because of the high contrast to the way this is often approached in academia, where we kind of throw people into leadership positions with limited training, but also then don't invest in their leadership going on from there. And I'm really struck from the four of you so far about the strength of these themes on diversity and inclusion and leadership, but how tightly interwoven those things are. And I think they're both areas where, from the work we've done on research culture, we see that that much of the academic community has got a lot to learn. I'm going to kick off with a question, but I can see we have some coming into the Q&A, and I'm going to encourage everyone else to get their questions in, so that the last half hour of this we can really start to explore some of the things that everyone who's listening wants to hear about. I wondered if first I could come back to you, Scilla, based on what you've heard from Soraya and John and Robin, this idea of that we can't create, we can't expect people to be ready-made as leaders. People might have natural talent we need to nurture, but it is something that needs to be developed. How, through your career, what have you seen work in terms of both hiring people, selecting them, and then bringing them on and nurturing them on that journey?
Yeah, I think it's interesting how the four of us were saying the same things in different ways, because we all want to work in organisations where talent's well recruited, developed and led. And the leaders of today and tomorrow need to be equipped to serve. As Soraya said, they're made, not born, I think, in every case. So you need really tight succession planning and serious investment in leadership training from day one. And I think we're all aligned on that. Some skills come naturally, but most can be taught, and you're never too experienced to learn new ones. And it's very arrogant and foolish to assume you don't need any leadership training. So much can be learned from others. I think good leaders have both IQ and EQ, because it's not about being in charge. It's about taking care of people in your charge. And, poor line managers are often cited as the main reason that people leave organisations. So I think you've got to invest. I think networks play a part in organisations and in sectors. I think mentoring and sponsorship all play a part in leadership. And I think leaders do need the right balance of support and challenge. Command and control is giving way. I think Soraya said it's old school, but it's giving way to much more flexible workplace structures and leadership, requiring humility in leadership and lots of self-awareness and transparency and cultural sensitivity, where employees can be heard and valued. And if you look at most surveys of most organisations and sectors, there is fear about speaking up about bad stuff. And that is a key barrier that we have to unlock. We have to make leaders aware of and to encourage an open dialogue about stuff that isn't working well and stuff that is, so that we can learn and move on. But failure to speak up is perpetuating bad behaviour, and holding leaders and organisations back. So that's a very long answer to your question, but I think it is hard work, and we have to invest, as Soraya says, from day one in this.
Thanks, Illa. That really chimes with a question that's come in for Soraya in the chat, which says, the Forces Officer Corps are selected on leadership and then the skill set. This feels like the opposite of the academic model, where we select for people's skills and effectively hope they become leaders afterwards. What advice or lessons can you give us on how you could retrofit that kind of leadership selection?
Oh, that's how you retrofit it. I'm not quite sure. It is a difficult question. And of course we have to do both. You have to do both. So we're quite a technical organisation, and we recruit people, on the basis of their technical ability as well. We have a series of aptitude tests. We have academic, bars that people have to get through in order to be selected into different branches. But absolutely, along with that, we assess their sort of innate leadership potential. And of course, as I said, the first 6 months of their training is not on their professional skills, it's on their officer ability, their leadership ability. And it is absolutely key. And of course, your progression through the organisation and your promotion depends on not just how well you do professionally in your kind of core role, but how well you lead. And if you have a look at the various different career paths available to you in the Royal Air Force, if you happen to be, very, very good at logistics, or you're an amazing pilot, but you're not a good leader, there are opportunities for you to still stay in and serve, but you become a deep expert, but you don't get promoted and you don't move into leadership roles. And I think it is really, really important to have both of those streams, because of course you need the experts, you need the people who are absolutely amazing at the jobs that they do, but then you need the people to lead and to drive the organisation in a certain direction as well. And just going back to Scylla's point before, absolutely wholeheartedly believe in this sort of value system. And I think one of the things that we try and ingrain into our officers is that leadership is actually about service. You serve the people that you lead. Yes, your job is to lead the organisation, but it's to serve those in your charge, in essence, as well. And we have this sort of ethos and core values that underpin all of our leadership, which is sort of respect, integrity, service, and excellence. And I think that really helps us to sort of strike the right balance there.
Thanks, Soraya. We have some fantastic questions coming in here, and I know we're not going to get through all of them, which is such a shame. But I almost think, just to be less polite about something you said at the beginning of that, perhaps we're saying we shouldn't be thinking about retrofitting. We should do something more drastic, and academia should think about whether we actually change the way that we put people into those positions in the first place, and then what we do about it. I can say that because I work for a funder. So let me come to a question that was aimed at John and Soraya, but I'd really like to bring Robin in on this as well. And Robin, I'll come to John first and then Robin, and see if Soraya wants to add anything afterwards. How might individuals behave as the leaders that they would like to have? John, that's a really good question, and quite a difficult one to answer, because I think a lot of us, one of the key things about a good leader is their ability to flex style, I think, to people who respond in a different way. So I think, one of the tools that we need to equip our leaders with is the ability to recognize that. I think when my first leadership experience was inside government, and I got so many things wrong, even after, kind of going through necessary training before they would let you loose on having a group to be responsible for, purely because I didn't understand that everybody reacts differently to different stimuli. So, I would ask somebody to do something and they wouldn't do it, and I'd have to try and sit there and understand, well, why? That was a very clear instruction in my mind. So I think that's would be my key point from that question, is that we need to recognize there is not one leadership style that everybody responds to or that everybody is comfortable with. And that should form part of the sort of your standard training before you're given the great responsibility of having to lead people. Thanks, John. It's such an important point that you will make mistakes as a leader, and we all do it, and we have to get comfortable with that, but then learn from it. And I think that vulnerability in itself is a really important attribute in leadership. Robin, can I come to you with that same question? How do you think individuals should behave as the leaders that they would like to have?
I don't really understand the question. Do you mean how should, if you're saying that people should behave how they like leaders to behave, I guess maybe you could write a list of how people have treated you when they've been a good leader in the past, and how people have treated you when they've been a bad leader in the past. And then when you're the leader, you do the things that are on the good list, and you try to check yourself for the things that are on the bad list so you don't do those things.
I love that. I think that's a really practical approach to it. And it's something that I try to do is look at those people I see leading well and learn from it. And sometimes try it myself and see what happens. Soraya, did you want to come in on that one as well?
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. I think leadership is something that you never ever master. You just hopefully get better at it with more experience. And this idea of self-awareness is absolutely key. And in fact, we've just rewritten our kind of manual of leadership and the way that we teach it. And it starts with know yourself and lead yourself, and then lead small teams, and you sort of move up from there. But that knowing yourself bit is absolutely key. And I think the only way we can improve as leaders is to really reflect on what we've done well and what we've done badly, what we would do better next time. To look at other people, people around you, people above you, people below you, find inspiration, look at things that have worked well, things that you really wouldn't try that way. Be humble about it and recognize that you don't have all the answers as the leader. And I see it as being, something that we really need to give time and thought to as leaders to continue that development pathway.
Thanks, Raya. I'm going to come back to Robin.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo that thing about self-awareness, that when I started working with Heart and Soul, it was the first time I'd ever had a job. Like, I get paid for the work I do. Sometimes people think that somehow because I've got a disability, I'm some charity case that doesn't deserve to be paid like everyone else. I get paid the same as everyone else. It's the first time I've had a job where not being good at reading and writing wasn't a problem. That so often in past situations, I'm self-employed, but many people, if I give a presentation, they focus on, that I've missed an engagement or something, and not what I'm really communicating, that people are very hung up on spelling and grammar and punctuation. And as important as it is, I think that people forget that there are some people like me who genuinely struggle with it and genuinely find it difficult. And it always made me feel like I was kind of useless and stupid, because people would constantly be pointing these things out, and I'd be like, well, I know that, but I'm not learning these things. Sorry, my laptop just, I think the power cord just fell out, sorry. I'm not intentionally learning these things that you're telling me, but really, don't you think I'm maybe communicating something, and if you could just look past the spelling and grammar? And I think that's what Heart and Soul have done with me, and what that's meant is that there's a lot of things that, so within our team, even if somebody who, we don't really have a leadership structure, but if somebody has to do something like a public speaking event, I'm very comfortable speaking to like 1,000 people or however many people. It doesn't bother me. So I always volunteer to do those things, because I know that that's my contribution. I know that a lot of people find that very difficult, and I find it very easy. So I do that. But equally, the ease that I have with public speaking, I think that's how a lot of people find spelling and grammar. So whenever I have to write anything, I get someone else to spell check it and do all the punctuation, because I know I can't do that. But what my team tell me is that public speaking is just as valuable as being able to read and write. But my own experience is that whilst it might be just as valuable, most people are very focused on spelling and grammar and punctuation. So I think that self-awareness is important, but I think also you have to be aware of how your biases affect the way that you judge somebody. That, like, is the person actually good at what they're saying? Like, do they know what they're talking about? And if they do know what they're talking about, but their slides are spelt wrong, well, does that matter? It probably doesn't really, because maybe they're the only person that could have that idea. And I think when you're leading, I think that it's some of the important thing about leading is to inspire others to recognise their own skills and to not feel that they're somehow useless in any way. There must be a lot of people like me out there that find reading and writing difficult, and they've got into the world of employment, and they're probably not going up the career ladder. In fact, I know that there are people out there, and actually, if you can look past some of the negatives, you might see that there are positives that far outweigh the negatives, and you can mitigate the negatives, like the spelling and grammar. Like, most people find that stuff easy. Before you say it, yes, I've heard of spell check and Grammarly. But most people can get through that, but most people find it difficult to speak to 1,000 people.
Robin, you've made such an important point there about leaders being there to get the best out of people. You said that so beautifully. I'm going to take us on to a different topic within this leadership theme now that relates to a couple of questions here about responsibility and accountability. So first, let me pick up one about what happens when there's bad behaviour. Does there need to be more accountability for bad behaviour within academia? Some of you might be able to talk about that, but I'd love to know about this kind of what happens when things go wrong. If someone is, say, found to have bullied someone or harassed someone, how should we be dealing with these difficult things, and what can academia learn about that? Because I think it's fair to say it's not something that is a strength of ours. Dilla, could I come to you first, and then I'll let the rest of you wave and tell me if you want to come in on it.
Yeah, well, I think the reality of leadership is that you will make mistakes, and some mistakes in leadership are fixable and some mistakes are fireable. And I think learning from mistakes is an essential part of leadership. On the serious issues you raise, leaders have to create a culture of candor, of transparency, of safety, of building a culture where it's safe to speak up. As I said earlier, too much bad stuff goes unreported. So leaders do have to be responsible and accountable for safety, a good culture, and training people on how and when to speak up. But in every organisation, this is a barrier, however good their culture. So I think there are lots of ways to deal with this at a company level, at an individual level, at a sector level where you can look at the issues across your sector. But I think we do have to show rigour. It is a privilege to be a leader. And if leaders make mistakes, then they must be held accountable. And it should be in their job description and in their key performance indicators. But on the fixable mistakes, I think you need to have the courage as a leader to admit mistakes and learn from them. But on the big ones, they're fireable, and none of us are beyond reproach. We're all accountable for our actions. So I think you have to deal with them openly and recognise when things go wrong. When they've gone wrong retrospectively, that is much more difficult. But that's where keeping a culture alive where people can speak up is so important.
John, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, Silla's exactly right. There's something from the very top. So about the organizational culture, it needs to be writ large that this is not acceptable. And when things go wrong, there will be consequences. I think then it's also about your processes. So, it is for everyone who leads people in our business, and I'm sure it is in many other companies of our size. Your performance will be monitored, and you will be, your ability to progress through your career will be severely hampered by the recognised inability to lead groups. And then the final point is you need to be very honest about where your problems are, and you do that through collecting data, speaking to people, qualitative and quantitative data. We're very proud of monitoring, whether our employees consider our organisation a safe place to challenge. That's, we've been seeing the numbers go up recently, so we're doing something right, which is great. But only until you do that can you really start to get a handle on where your problems are. And I think, that is one of the areas. There's a lot of obviously cultural issues to the cultural problem within academia, but one of those is being prepared to, which seems paradoxical actually for a group of people who are committed to understanding the mechanisms of, the fundamental forces of nature, but it's actually collecting data on where the problems are and asking yourself, what is the size of the issue that you're looking to face?
Thanks, John. Soraya?
I completely agree with Scilla and John, and it comes down to culture. And certainly, the military has been on a journey, and you don't change culture just by, it doesn't happen. Education is absolutely key. Yes, you have to take a zero tolerance sort of stance to the worst kind of behaviours to sort of weed it out and make sure it doesn't kind of continue in your organisation. But we've invested a lot in kind of additional training and education, because we're all products of our experience. And if you've come through a system in which those behaviours were almost put on a pedestal and allowed to flourish, it's very difficult to change. We have things like bystander training. We have annual training for people to sort of raise their own awareness in terms of diversity and inclusion and unconscious bias and things like that, to really try and make people more aware of the way they are and what is and what is not acceptable behaviour. We've also brought in kind of reporting tools like 360-degree reporting, 180-degree reporting, again, to try and improve your own awareness as a leader in terms of how you come across to your team, how something even very well-intentioned can have an impact on somebody. And ultimately, this idea of taking responsibility for your actions, but creating an environment in which people can genuinely speak up, but also people can make mistakes, and that's okay, because we all learn from mistakes. And in fact, we probably learn more from making mistakes than we do from getting things right all the time. So this has to be a really conscious effort. And there has to be education involved in order to get people, in order to sort of change the culture of an organisation, so you can embrace those styles of leadership and encourage that kind of culture.
Thanks, Soraya. We have so many more great questions here than we're able to get through in our short time together. I'm going to take one more, and I'm hoping some of this conversation can continue online afterwards, but I think we'd need 24 hours at least to get through the rest of them. One final one for all of you to reflect on quickly, and then we're going to have a kind of lightning round to close. But one of the questions we have here is: change is notoriously difficult and our research staff are impatient. Could you identify key approaches to effecting real change and how long it took to bring it about? It's a tough question. Robin, let me come to you first.
So when we first discovered about the Hub Award, and we decided to apply, we had to tell Wellcome that actually the application process was not accessible to all of us, and that there was 10 of us who put together the application with core team, and we're all equal within that team, and so if it wasn't accessible to one person, it's not accessible to everybody. And so Wellcome changed what they did, and they offered us the opportunity to do a video of what we were saying. We still, within our team, we had people who were very competent at reading and writing and could translate the questions into more easy read format. And then, we made a video for our application. And now, I'm not sure if it's true across all of the grants that on the funding programs that Wellcome has, but definitely the Hub Award, now that is a default option that people have of being able to use a video. I don't think that took that long. It was probably, 3 months or so. I don't really know. And I don't think that was Wellcome's fault. I think, emails go back and forth, and it was a decision that would have had to be made by a lot of people. In terms of once we got to the hub, like if we said something wasn't accessible, it was often changed that day or that week or, very quickly. But I think also within our team, when something hasn't worked, we have regular, so we don't do written minutes because that's not accessible to everyone. But we do have the regular team meetings, and if something's not working, we have a discussion about it and we find something else that we can try to work with, and then we try that, and if that doesn't work, then we change it and we keep changing it. Sometimes that can be quick, and sometimes it can take longer, and I think being clear about why you want to be more inclusive, like why do you want to do that and who is it that you're trying to include, I think is important. There was a question in the Q&A about staff like not wanting to like have leadership training, and I think you could say to them, well, have you ever had a bad manager? I bet everyone's had a bad manager. How did having a bad manager make you feel? And then they could write a bullet point list or draw a picture, and then you could say, do you want to make people feel that way? And if the answer is no, then leadership training might be a good thing. I also think that leadership training doesn't just have to be like a course. Like, I almost think courses are a bit overrated. I think you learn by doing, and it might be that you start off being in charge of the stationery order. Now, that might not seem like a leadership challenge, but you have to do all the things leaders have to do. You have to listen to what your colleagues are saying about what they want. So if they prefer the sticky notes that are landscape versus portrait, well, that might not seem like a big deal to you. But if it's a big deal for that person, well, then it's a big deal for your team, because that's what you do as a leader. You galvanize your team together. And then, then you have to like navigate the form, and then you also have to navigate the team's expectations about like, well, when is this stationery order going to turn up and who's going to be delivering it? And then you have to deal with logistics of like, how is that going to get to them? And has the email got lost to the stationery department, and so forth and so forth. And then there's the unpacking and making sure that everything is recycled properly. And you might not be doing the recycling, so you're leading people to make sure that that job is done properly. And that might seem very small, but actually I think that people that are not very good at leading, they've often not really done those small things. They think they're beneath them, but those small things, they all add up, and you become a better leader the more experience you have.
You put that so well, Robin, and it's a really tangible example of change and actually like making things happen, that I'm going to suggest I don't come to the rest of you on this one. I'm going to go to our lightning question that we've got to close this. And I'm hoping some others might share with us in the chat what they think about this question as well. So what I'm going to ask is for each of you on the panel to give me an answer in 1 or 2 sentences to what is the one action we should take in all our organisations to create a better working culture. That's our final question before we go. John, could I start with you?
Yeah, I'm going to be rude. I'm going to take 2 things. So I'm going to say measure, and I'm going to say set expectations.
Thanks, John. You're allowed to because you were so brief. Soraya, can I come to you next?
I would say that it's making sure that everybody has an opportunity to speak. So even simple things like running a meeting, making sure the person who sat at that table and not said anything, has an opportunity to contribute and make them feel valued. And I think that's a really important part of sort of cultural change in an organisation.
Dilla, on to you.
I think have a plan for D&I measurement and action that's at the heart of your organisation. Stick to the plan, measure it, hold yourself accountable to it, and make it safe for everyone to speak up about it.
And last but not least, Robin.
Ask people what they want and give it to them, and make sure you actually genuinely listen to people, and also simplify your language, like use littler words instead of big complicated words.
That is definitely something we can all do. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined us today for the brilliant questions that we've had from all of you listening. A huge thanks to the panel. This has been such an interesting discussion, and I'm just sorry that we don't have longer to carry it on and so that we can keep learning from you. Thank you too to everyone who's made this happen behind the scenes, the people who really made this work. You're not getting to see today, so I want to give them a big thanks. I hope you're going to join us for the rest of the festival. We have 3 live workshops coming up tomorrow, so please get involved with those. And you can catch up, watch back anything that you've missed on the Wellcome website. So thank you all so much, and goodbye.